Hey guys, it's Shara from Woodshop Diaries, and I'm in Sam's workshop.
Hi!
So I'm at Sam from DIY Huntress's workshop, and we are going to take this empty space and add some function.
Also, we only have 3 days to do it.
We're gonna build out that wall and this wall with some workshop cabinets and a miter saw stand, and we don't have a lot of time, so let's just dive right in and get building.
So excited, let's do it.
I'm so excited for this project because I got to partner with all of my favorites. Not only was I collabing with Sam, but this video was also sponsored by my friends at Craig Tool. If you've been around very long, then you already know how much I love my Craig jigs and guides, especially when building cabinets. So you'll be seeing several of them throughout the video. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start from the beginning. In my video, I'm going to be sharing how Sam and I built out this wall with some basic cabinets. But when you're finished here, if you head over to Sam's channel, she's going to be sharing how we built out this wall for her new miter saw station. You're not going to want to miss out on anything Sam is sharing over there, so if you're not already subbed to her channel, you ought to be. Okay, let's build. For this side of the shop, we're building 2 small cabinets to use as a workbench and 2 taller pantry-style cabinets for storage. The first step to any kind of cabinet build is cutting down the plywood. We tried to keep these dimensions pretty simple so that we could make the best use of materials and make the fewest amounts of cuts. I'm sharing building plans with cut diagrams in the plans linked below if you're interested in exact measurements. I used a Craig rip cut and circular saw to rip the plywood sheets into 24-inch wide strips. I literally told Sam that I wasn't coming to help unless she had a rip cut and an AccuCut because I would be lost trying to build anything without these. From these strips, I cut the cabinet sides and bottoms using a circular saw and Craig AccuCut. After all the large plywood pieces were cut down, I ripped the remaining piece of plywood to 3-inch wide strips to use as the top and back supports of the cabinets. I trimmed these pieces to length on the miter saw. Now, while I was cutting down the plywood sheets, Sam was marking and cutting out the toe kicks on the front corner of each cabinet side. Now, something unique about Sam's shop that may not apply to your own shop if you're looking at replicating this project is that her shop has this concrete curb along the wall. To work around that, she basically measured and notched out the back corners using a jigsaw, then just notched the front corner the same size for the toe kick. But in most cases, you'll only need to notch the front corner for the toe kick. Now, don't get overwhelmed with all of these pieces. Building cabinets is literally building boxes, and it's really simple. So for a visual, here's all the pieces that we just cut down. We have 2 tall sides for each pantry cabinet, and just an FYI, we cut these to 88 inches tall. Depending on your ceiling height, you could make these a full 8 foot if you wanted. Then we have 2 short sides for each center cabinet. All of these pieces had corner notches, as you can see. Then we have 1 piece for the bottom of each middle cabinet, 3 pieces for the top, middle, and bottom of each pantry cabinet, 3 3-inch wide strips for each middle cabinet, and 2 3-inch wide strips for each pantry cabinet. All the specific measurements can be found in the plans linked in the description. After all these pieces were cut, we began drilling pocket holes. I drilled pocket holes on the larger panels, the bottoms, middle, and top pieces of the cabinets using my favorite jig, the Craig 720. Sam took on drilling pocket holes in the smaller strips on her favorite jig, the Craig Foreman. Teamwork makes the dream work, and we knocked these out pretty quickly. Unfortunately, we rushed through the fun stuff just to make it to the not so fun stuff, edge banding and sanding. Thankfully, with 2 people, this goes twice as fast, so while I ironed on the banding, Sam took care of the sanding. Now, just a side note, we bought this edge banding from the store and it was 7/8 inches wide. The plywood we were using is just under 3/4 of an inch wide, so there was a lot to trim off.
The plywood is it's slightly under 3/4 of an inch thick, and the edge banding is 7/8. So what we did was we edge banded the front, and then Sam's gonna use a utility knife to just trim this edge off, and then we can sand it, and it won't be such a long sanding process because we cut off the majority of the leftover edge banding. See? So this is cut off instead of sanded off, which makes sanding a lot less awful.
I was gonna say, I was hoping you were gonna say less awful, because sanding is pretty awful.
Typically, I buy my edge banding in bulk on Amazon and I get 3/4 inch wide banding. This cuts down a ton of time trimming and sanding off the excess. However, if you do need to trim it, a utility knife does work great. We only edge banded the front edges that will be exposed in the end project. No need to edge band anything on the backside. Once that was finished, it was finally time to assemble the boxes. And again, teamwork makes the dream work, so Sam assembled one box while I assembled the other using pocket hole screws through the holes that we drilled earlier. To assemble these middle cabinet boxes, we attached the bottom panel flush along the bottom edge of the toe kick notches, then we attached one of the 3-inch strips at the top front and the other 2 at the back. The top strips will be used to secure the countertop, and the one along the back edge will be used to secure the cabinet to the wall. Sam wanted to leave the backs of these cabinets open so that she could access the outlets inside. So obviously we didn't add a back panel here. However, if you wanted, you can certainly nail or staple a back 1/4 inch plywood panel onto the backside. If you do, this kind of just helps square and sturdy up the cabinet a little to make shimming easier later. So Sam had bought a 6-foot long butcher block top to go on these. So we laid out the cabinets and the top to get a rough idea where these should go on the wall. We removed the top once we had a good idea of where things were going. But before securing the cabinets, I did go ahead and drill oversized holes in the top supports. That way we can use screws from the bottom to secure the butcher block and still allow for wood movement. But we'll come back to this in a minute. To install, first we screwed the right side cabinet to the studs. We used some shims to make sure that the cabinet was level side to side and front to back, and to make sure that it was square before attaching. I didn't want to be the one to put a hole in Sam's brand new workshop's fresh drywall, so I let her drive the screws into the wall studs through the back supports on the cabinets. Once the first cabinet was in place, we set the top on it so that the edge was flush along the right side. Sam held it in place while I drove the screws through the oversized holes to secure it from the inside. Also, just a note, we used some washers on these screws so that they didn't go all the way through the holes, but they did hold the pieces tight together. Now that the right side was done, this made installing the left side a lot easier. We shimmed up the left cabinet to meet the butcher block at the bottom and made sure that the left edge of the cabinet lined up with the left edge of the top. Then we screwed it in through the oversized holes that I drilled earlier. We were both pretty excited when we stepped back and double checked our work.
That's like dead level. Yes, dead level. It only took like 66 shims, but...
Once we made sure it was level, we secured the left side to the studs and moved on to adding the other cabinets.
Sounds good to me. What? It's like we know what we're doing or something. There. Okay.
The taller pantry-style cabinets that will anchor each side are built similarly, but slightly different. Since these won't have a separate countertop, they are built with a solid bottom panel and a solid top panel. And since they're so tall, in order to keep the sides from bowing in or out, we also added a solid stationary shelf in the middle as well. These cabinets will have adjustable shelves added later, but this stationary shelf will just help hold the sides in place and sturdy it up a bit. In order to secure these to the wall studs, we added one 3-inch strip under the top panel and one under the middle panel. Once we had one cabinet assembled, we awkwardly maneuvered it into place next to the middle cabinets. It's really nice to have 2 sets of hands here. We shimmed up this cabinet as well to make sure it was square and level, then screwed it to the existing cabinet and into the wall studs through the supports in the back. Once one was in, we repeated the same for the other side. Then we noticed a problem.
So our project was going really well until we got to this point and we got the cabinet put in here, shimmed up level and everything. And then I asked Sam, is your door going to be able to open because of the garage door rail here?
And the answer is no.
So I took this level and I put it up here to see how much of this, like this cabinet that we would need to cut off. So I just like held it up here level and it looks like maybe about 2 inches. And the thought of taking this down and cutting 2 inches off made me want to throw up in my mouth. So we are not doing that. I convinced Sam that taking a piece of plywood strip that's, I don't know, I think this is 3 inches wide, and putting it on the front here at the top will be able to drop the door down about 3 inches, so it'll be able to open, but it won't take away from the design. We're just gonna slap this on here, obviously cut to length, and then the door will come up straight to the same plane as this and be able to open, and you probably, if I didn't point it out, wouldn't even notice. So that's what we're doing. It'll be fine.
This is the beauty of custom carpentry.
Exactly.
What if when we cut the door, we cut that strip from the same piece of plywood so it's continuous green?
Oh yeah, that's a good
And
idea.
then it looks like it's one.
Perfect. Yeah.
Done!
Now that we had a plan together, I began trimming down some more plywood to cut for the doors. These will be full overlay doors, so they should be cut 1/4 inch smaller in height and width than the overall front of the cabinets. For the tall cabinets, I mentioned that we decided to add a trim piece at the top so the door could open without hitting the garage door rail. So I cut a piece the size that I would need for a full door, but then I just trimmed 3 inches off the top and made sure to label these correctly. This will allow us to do a continuous grain all the way up so the trim will match the door, and it will help conceal the fact that it's not a solid door all the way up. While I was finishing up the doors, Sam was busy using the Craig shelf pin jig to drill shelf pin holes in all of her cabinets so that she can install adjustable shelves to hold all of her tools. This jig basically allows you to drill evenly spaced holes so that you can insert shelf pins in to place your shelves on. Much like edge banding, this is a very monotonous task, but it's one of those must-do things. After the doors were edge banded, I used a Craig concealed hinge jig to drill cup holes for the concealed hinges. I used a cardboard box as a work surface, which was probably not the best idea.
My workbench collapsed.
But once the cup holes were drilled out, I screwed the hinges in place. Now I have a complete tutorial that I will link below for how to install concealed hinges using this jig. We used hinges for full overlay doors on frameless cabinets since that's what we're installing here. The small doors were easy because they just need 2 hinges, one at the top and one at the bottom. We could also use this Craig cabinet door jig to help hold it in position while I screwed the hinge to the cabinet. I didn't realize until after the fact that my entire body was in the way on this door, so here's a better look on the other door. Sometimes with these cameras, there's just not a great place to put them to get the shot. For the larger doors, I brad nailed the trim piece at the top, then installed the door below it. For these doors, since they were so heavy, I had to install 4 hinges, and I just evenly spaced these out and made sure that they wouldn't interfere with the stationary shelf. This door was too heavy to use with the Craig cabinet door jig, so I have a tip.
For help installing big heavy doors, you just put it on your foot and you just raise and lower your toes. Super easy.
You can also phone a friend, but that's easier.
I added 1 screw in each hinge first, then adjusted them as needed to properly close. Then I went back and installed the 2nd screw in each hinge once I had my door pretty much adjusted where I wanted it to be. I found it challenging to get the door aligned to the top trim piece, so for the 2nd cabinet I installed the door first, then came back and added the trim piece after. And of course, I didn't get footage of installing the trim piece here, but I just lined it up and nailed it in place. Building here in Sam's shop was seriously a blast, and I was a lot more focused on just building and having a good time than I was filming, so sorry about that. The closer we got to the finish line, the less attention I was paying to the camera. Also, the time crunch didn't help either. All that was left at this point was to stain the cabinets and add the finishing touches. To make things easier, we removed the doors from the hinges. Sam picked out a black gel stain, so we brushed it on, wiped it off, and then I reinstalled the doors, reattached the countertop, and added some simple black handles. The very last detail was adding a toe kick. Now, full disclosure, normally I'll use 3/4 inch plywood for the toe kick, but we had these leftover 1/4 inch plywood strips, so I used those instead. Either one works totally fine, but I was just trying to use up what we already had. I trimmed 1 piece to cover each section of cabinets, stained them first, then brad nailed them across the front.
All right, friends, it's been a whirlwind of 3 days here at Sam's workshop. I just wrapped up this project, getting the handles and the doors back on after stain. I'm still covered in stain. I haven't even washed off yet, but I needed to just take a quick video and get you some finished images of it because I've got to head out in the morning and get out of Sam's shop and out of Sam's hair.
Now, this is where I had to pack up and fly home. So Sam picked up my slack after I left and applied a finish coat to the cabinets and the workbench top. She's got all of the details on what she used over in her video if you want to check it out. She also cut and installed the shelves for me, so huge shout out to Sam for picking up where I had to leave off. Also, huge shout out to Sam for inviting me to come build and trusting me with this project for her shop. And also for treating me to some New York bagels and pizza while I was there. Building and filming with Sam was such a fun experience that I very much hope to be able to do again soon.
We've gotten so much done in just 3 days here in this shop, and I'm really excited for Sam. I'm really excited for her new workspace, and you can see a sneak peek of the project over here in the corner that Sam is sharing over on her channel. It's her miter saw station. I'm sure she'll have tons of projects to come out of this shop, so head over to her channel, give her a follow, and check it out if you're not already. I hope you guys enjoyed this collab and this video, and until next time, friends, happy building.